Hey gang, John Bacarella here with Sportsmen's Direct with this week's fishing report for you. It's been a blustery week here so far, and it's still been cold, so water temperatures are still falling. I just checked some buoy data, and it's showing like 52, 53 degrees pretty much out there at all the different water temperature locations, so the water is definitely falling. Up into Lake Huron, we're showing even lower than that, so and all that water is headed down. So cold nights, it's going to keep falling for sure. Now, it's been windy all week, but mostly offshore, so I don't think it's changed water clarity much out there at all. It should be actually cleaner here on the American side, but I would guess that Canadian side is getting beat up pretty good with all the wind. Now, they're still perch fishing down by 9 miles, so that 9 mile area all the way down close to the Detroit River is still producing really good catches of perch on emerald shiners. We're still getting some reports up on the north end that they're getting fish out there still in Anchor Bay. And I know there's been some guys poking around out here in front of Geno's and the 400, but I really don't have any current reports for you from those locations. I think the wind has really just been keeping everybody down, plus the mornings were really cold. So unless you're a diehard, the guys really haven't been going out a whole lot this week. Now, there has been some pretty darn good action going on in the marinas, and one of my friends, Cody Settler, one of our pro staffers, has been hitting the marinas pretty hard and fishing out of his kayak. And Cody's been catching some big crappies, some perch, some panfish, so the action's been pretty good. So regardless of the wind, for you guys that have kayaks, you can get tucked away pretty good in these marinas and have a really good day. As long as you're not having to traverse out there in big open water with the wind blowing. But the marinas and the back bays are producing some panfish, pretty good numbers right now. I would expect that Clinton River, that spillway area, to really pick up as well. Don't have any reports because I don't think anybody's really been hitting it very hard yet, but that's another one that you really need to start keeping an eye on. Now, walleyes have been pretty quiet this week. I know some of the guys have been jigging up on the river, but again, the wind's been the story, and when it's that windy, it's just not comfortable fishing. So this weekend, the wind forecast does not look like it's going to let up. I was just checking some numbers here, and it's actually supposed to blow southwest here for today, tomorrow, and then going into Sunday, it's supposed to switch around to the northwest, I think, on late Saturday going into Sunday, and then maybe we're going to get a break for you guys to go out Sunday. It should maybe be under 10 miles an hour. So looks like that's going to be the pick day to head on out. Now, for all you guys coming up, we get calls all week long about the smallmouth bass. And we're going to have a report from you fresh right off the water from one of our local guides and friends of ours. Joe Bauer is going to be stopping in here very shortly. He's actually out right now fishing, and he's going to give us an update. And he's also going to talk a little bit about what you guys should be looking for if you are coming up this time of the year. What type of water depths you should be looking for, what are his go-to baits out here. I'm going to pimp him a little bit for, what's he expect to happen. And we're even going to talk about Monster Quest a little bit, get a rundown on, I don't know if you guys saw some of the weights, but some of these guys out here do not have any trouble catching big fish this time of the year. And the weights from Monster Quest were, over 28 pounds. So that's just some really big fish coming out of the lake right now for smallies. And I'm hoping Joe can shed some light on some of that. Muskie fishing, don't have anything to change on that with you guys this week. I think you're still going to do fine fishing the near shore, even with these strong winds. Casting will be a little bit of a bear if you're throwing those pounders and those big medusas out there, throwing in the wind. So you're going to be casting off of one side of the boat, I'm guessing, with the wind blowing at 15 to 20. But you could still get out there in that 10 to 12 foot of water as long as we've got mostly offshore winds. You should still be able to fish. And as I've told a lot of the guys that come in here, this time of the year, you can really get away with fishing for these muskies almost like casting for bass. I mean, you can work the shoreline, you can work these points, you can work, any of the structure around the shoreline, kind of like if you were largemouth bass fishing, and there's going to be some toothy critters hanging around those structures. The marina mouths, the canals, any place where you got tires, where they've got tires set up to break that wave action coming into the marinas, those are all going to hold muskies this time of the year because the bait fish are there. So one other thing I just thought of for you guys. Now, this time of the year is one of my favorite times of the year other than bow hunting out of a tree, which can really stink when it's windy like it's going. But actually the walleye fishing at night out here can be really good even on these windy nights. You just got to know how to play the wind. Now, if you can think like a fish a little bit, when this wind is blowing, when it's breaking around these points like at here, just about anywhere really. So pick any point, pick any projection going out into the lake, and when that wind is blowing, especially like a longshore wind like northwest or southwest, it's going to break that water around the corner of these points. And these fish will stack up on those breaks. Because why? Because the bait fish are going to get pushed up on these breaks, and they're going to act like almost river current breaks. So when you get those breaks and you can position yourself on the shoreline and throw your bombers or your blade baits or whatever you're going to throw for these eyes at night, you're going to find that those fish are going to be really, really concentrated on these current breaks. So it may not be really fun fishing in the wind, guys, but let me tell you that you can catch some monster fish this time of the year if you play the wind break. So don't stay home just because it's windy. You can still go out and cast for these eyes at night, and you can do really well. Some of these like Blossom Heath and St. Clair Shores, and I don't know if the guards are there not or yet, so I really don't know about whether or not you can get into some of these spots. But if you do have access, you can definitely fish off ashore this time of the year, even on these windy nights, and catch some beautiful walleyes. Next up, we're gonna have Joe in here, and we're gonna talk a little bit about Lake St. Clair smallmouth. So I'm sitting here with Joe Bauer. Just got off the lake with a client here. It's October 16th?
October 18th.
18th.
Yep.
So middle of October. All you guys you're calling the shop all the time. You're looking for advice on fishing for these smallmouth bass, for these brown fish, as you guys call them up here. And I don't chase them this time of the year, so I figured I would bring somebody in that does chase them this time of the year. And so we got Joe Bauer here, who's like I said, just got off the water. And so how was it out there today?
Well, John, it was pretty rough. This is the only day this week we could actually get out there. We've had 20 to 30 mile an hour gusts, and it's just been a place you don't want to be out there. And safety is the biggest concern this time of year. We've got dropping water temperatures, and you just don't want to be out there. It's not worth it to chase those fish. I mean, this is the best fishing time of the year, in my opinion, but it's not worth risking your life or anything. So it can be worth it, but it's not that worth it. But we got out there, started out in 12 foot of water, worked some rock edges, and we had a lot of dirty water from all this wind that we've had. And in the dirty water, it's really hard to catch them. They can't see the bait, and you can throw the silver buddy and a blade bait, but you might hook up with them. A lot of them are going to be foul hooked just because there's so many fish in that area.
Really?
But they'll get in on the outside of their face, and you can even gut hook them, but they're not really seeing that bait to eat it. So when you get into that 1 to 3 foot of visibility, you can start throwing your tubes and your jerk baits, and you're going to have a lot more success. Right now, the key is to find that cleaner water. Looking at the satellite videos, the pictures, make sure you can see where that water is, so you can make a game plan, fish that cleaner water, and you're going to have a lot more success. Anywhere from 20 even up to 4 foot of water right now has got fish, and what you're looking for is those weed transitions. Anywhere there's rock and weed together, you're going to be on some fish. You just have to cover a lot of water, and starting out, we threw jerk baits until we got on that little rock hump that had the fish on it, spot lock, turn around and drag the tube and catch them until they stop biting.
So, but you were saying you got to really track them down. So I'm guessing these, like a lot of the fish this time of the year, you're going to have a lot of water where you're really not holding anything at all. Yep. But when you do find them, these fish are really schooled up.
They're really starting to school up right now. Throughout September and even the first part of October, they've been really sporadic. And you'll catch one here, you go another 200 yards, catch another fish, and now they're starting to group up. We're getting 6 to 7 fish off of a rock pile, and coming up after this next weekend when we get some lower temperatures, we need that water to drop down a little bit more. And
under 50? Under
50 for sure. Once we get in the 40s, they'll be grouped up by size. So once they're grouped up by size, you can be picky, and if you're catching 2s and 3 pounders, you can keep going because there's not going to be any big fish. They're all together. And once you catch a 5, you need to throw a buoy out or spot lock or do something to make sure you're on that same rock pile, because there's going to be tons of 5s and 6-pounders together, and it can be lights out. You can sit there for hours and catch them. But
now, are these fish are they gonna just continue to move up shallow, and are they gonna stay shallow, or are they gonna drop back before when the water temperatures really drop and go a little bit deep?
around Thanksgiving time, once we get into that high 30-degree water, they'll start to come back out.
Okay.
But until then, they're just going to keep going shallower and shallower, and around those rocks and weeds together until there's no weeds left, and then they'll start pushing out. But there's still a lot of weeds, especially on the Michigan shoreline.
So that's one of the key things, is to be
Yep.
looking for standing weed, even
Yep.
though it's not alive and green.
Right.
If it's standing weed, a lot of the ice guys look for the same thing. So you're looking for that same combination.
Yep. And once you find that weed, you can catch them. You gotta find the spot within the spot, and that's where they're going to be. And you can drag that tube over the same rock 4 or 5 times in a row and get bit 4 or 5 times in a row. But if you miss it by 3 feet, you're not going to get bit. Once we get these colder temperatures and there's loads of fish all grouped up together, then you can miss by 7 or 8 feet and you're still going to catch fish. But right now, for the next few days or weeks, just depends on how long it takes for that water to drop, you got to hit your spots, and spot lock is essential. You just got to be casting at the same spot, and it's really going to pay dividends once you hit that spot.
Now, I was looking at the upcoming forecast, and we're right now up in Lake Huron. The temperatures are falling pretty quick.
Yep.
So I'm guessing next week we're going to break into the upper 40s based on these cold nights and the wind chill factor right now that's going out there.
Yep.
So it's
Yep.
going to happen fast.
It's going to be fast and it's going to be furious, and hopefully we get 3 or 4 more weeks of fishing, but it's hard to tell.
Yeah, this time of year it blows north, it blows south, and whenever it does, it blows really hard.
Yep.
So it really mixes it up out there.
Yep, it started blowing north this morning. It was blowing out of the north, and then it switched around 2 o'clock and blew out of the south. So it really dictates where you're able to fish, and you just got to keep your eye on that forecast. Check it hourly almost, because if it switches directions on you and you're on the north end of the lake and it starts blowing south, you got to move, because you do not want to be out there when you've got 4-footers rolling in. And as strong as the wind gets this time of year, it can get ugly fast.
And you don't have anybody out. You're not going to have nearly the number of boats out there, guys. So definitely safety first, because, like you're saying, if you're caught over on that other side of the lake, and especially over on the Canadian side, there aren't that many boats out there to begin with. So, you're kind of on your own. So really watch the weather forecast beforehand before you come up here and go out. And this is not little boat territory this time of the year. So, make sure you've got the appropriate rig to get the job done.
Yep, and use the buddy system too. I mean, there's a lot of area out there that's got fish.
Yep, hunt them down together.
Yep, you start in one spot, go the opposite way, and you can call each other over once you locate them, because there's plenty of fish to go around. That's definitely for sure. But that way you've got somebody, where each other's at, and you can work together. It's good for fishing, and it's good for safety as well.
Now let's talk a little bit real quick. We had a tournament this weekend out here.
Yeah, and Monster Quest.
So there's some big weights.
Yeah, 2 28-pound bags, and
Yep.
I think 6 3/4 was big fish. I mean, it's insane. There's some really big fish out there right now, and this is definitely the time of year to catch your biggest fish ever. I just broke mine last week. I caught one over 6 pounds, 6.10, and there's not a ton of those 6-pounders and 7-pounders out there, but there's enough to where you think you can get bit every single cast by one. But you just have to spend time on the water and put your bait in the right spot, and it can happen. There's plenty of big fish out there.
Now, what about the bite up there, up close to the river mouths on the north end? Is that another pattern this time of the year? I mean, especially when we get closer to that, that true winter school up. I mean,
Yeah, as long as the bait stays up there. Okay. Like you were saying in last week's report, there's bait everywhere, right out from Metro all the way across the lake, essentially. And as long as that bait's there, there's going to be fish there. And I mean, there's community holes, so you're going to be sharing water up there, especially on like the Firecracker. But
right.
There's definitely fish to be had up there, and you just got to watch the wind. That's where I was going to fish tonight, but we had that south wind, and you just can't go there. So it's kind of protected. You can come down the river and fish it, but it's a tough run across from Harley when the wind's blowing, that's for sure.
So you really got to play that wind direction and pick, kind of pick your poison, which end of the lake you're going to run to. And
Yep. Another good area up there too is where the Bassett dumps in. There's a nice little lip and a point that sticks out, and that's got a lot of bait on it right now, and there's a lot of fish running around out there. And they're anywhere from that 12 to 16, 18 foot of water still. You can catch them on drop shot, blade bait. Just depends on what bait you can get in that depth, and just find the bait and you're going to find the fish. They're eating and they're getting fat right now for sure.
Hey, I think that's all we got. I mean, you got anything else to add? I mean, I want to let you get home. You had a long day.
Yeah.
Man. You worked all day, and then you went out and you worked on the lake all afternoon.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the second job is the best job there is.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's been a great year, and it's only going to get better. And there's big fish biting right now, so I'm going to spend as much time on the water as I can, whether I have clients or not. I mean, that's where I'll be. So.
It sounds like a plan.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us again, and we'll see you in another week or so. We'll see if we got anything new going on out there, and we're going to have Joe's contact information on here as well. So, if you want to book a trip with him and get out there and chase some smallies, before we go to the hard water season, I'm sure you'd appreciate it. So.
Yeah. Thank you, John. Appreciate it.